Have you ever felt like time was playing tricks on you? I live in a quiet little town in Arizona, the kind of place where nothing ever really happens. At least, that's what I used to think. It all started with my bedroom clock. It's an old-fashioned thing, an antique my grandmother gave me. One night I woke up suddenly, with that strange feeling you get when something is just off. I glanced at the clock. The second hand was ticking, but it was moving backward. Just for a minute, then it corrected itself. I shook my head, thinking I was just dreaming. But the next night, it happened again. This time it went backward for 5 whole minutes. I watched, completely frozen, as the minute hand crawled counterclockwise. The third night, I was ready. I set up my phone to record. Sure enough, right around 3 a.m., the clock started its bizarre dance again. The hand spun backward for an entire hour. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't a dream. I replayed the video over and over, my own shaky breathing audible in the background as the clock's hands raced backward. My meticulously set alarm for 6 a.m. was now showing 5 a.m. I was living in a time warp confined to my own bedroom. The next morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I unhooked the clock from the wall and drove it down to the local police station. I must have sounded like a complete lunatic, trying to explain that my clock was reversing time. The officer, a kind but skeptical man named Deputy Miller, took the clock. He examined it, turned it over, even shook it a little. He said he'd have their technician look at it. He called me later that day. "Ma'am," he said, his voice laced with patient amusement, "the clock is fine. It's a standard wind-up mechanism. Keeps perfect time." He even sent me a video from his own phone, showing the clock ticking away normally on his desk. Defeated and embarrassed, I went back and picked it up. That night, the fourth night, I felt a sense of dread as I hung the clock back on the wall. I stared at it, waiting. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with anticipation. The hands ticked forward, each click echoing like a drumbeat in the silence. Then, precisely at 3:15 a.m. they stopped. Both the hour and minute hands froze. But here's the truly terrifying part. Everything else in the room kept moving. I could see the moonlight shifting across the floor, the leaves on the tree outside my window rustling in the breeze. My own heart was hammering in my chest, a frantic rhythm against the sudden, dead silence of the clock. I jumped out of bed and rushed to the window. Outside, the world was proceeding as normal. A car drove down the street, its headlights cutting through the dark. A dog barked in the distance. But inside my room, time was fractured. I looked at my phone. The digital display was also frozen at 3:15 a.m. My laptop screen, same thing. It was as if my room had been cut out of the flow of time, suspended in a single, silent moment. I tried the light switch. Nothing. The power was out, but only in my room. The rest of the house was fine. I could see the hallway light glowing under the door. Panic began to set in. I was trapped. I tried my bedroom door, but the handle wouldn't turn. It was like it was welded shut. I pounded on it, yelling for my parents, but there was no response. It was like shouting into a void. I was completely isolated. The silence was the worst part. A profound, unnatural quiet that felt heavier than any sound. The only thing I could hear was the blood roaring in my ears. I paced the room like a caged animal, my mind racing. What was happening? Was this the clock? Had it finally broken time completely? Days started to blur, or what I perceived as days. The moonlight outside the window never changed its position on my floor. The leaves on the tree remained perfectly still. The world outside was a frozen painting. But inside the room, I was still aging, still getting hungry, still getting thirsty. The first 24 hours were the worst, a frantic cycle of panic and despair. I checked every corner of the room, looking for some clue, some way out. There was nothing, just me, my frozen digital devices, and that silent, mocking clock on the wall, its hands stuck at 3:15. After what felt like a week, the thirst became unbearable. I had no water. I was starting to feel weak, my thoughts growing foggy. I collapsed onto my bed, staring up at the ceiling, convinced I was going to die in this timeless prison. That's when I noticed it. A small, dark spot on the ceiling, directly above the clock. It hadn't been there before. As I watched, it seemed to grow, slowly pulsing like a dark heart. It wasn't a water stain. It was something else. It seemed to absorb the light around it, creating a patch of pure, impenetrable blackness. My fear was replaced by a morbid curiosity. I dragged my desk chair over and carefully climbed onto it, reaching a tentative hand toward the spot. As my fingers got closer, I felt a strange coldness radiating from it, and a low humming sound vibrated through the air, a sound I felt more than heard. My fingertips brushed the edge of the spot. It wasn't solid. It felt like touching cool, thick, static. I pushed my hand in further, and it was like plunging my arm into icy water. A strange energy coursed through me, and images flashed through my mind, too fast to comprehend. Glimpses of other places, other times. Faces I didn't recognize, landscapes from alien worlds. I pulled my hand back with a gasp, my heart pounding. The spot on the ceiling pulsed faster, the humming growing louder. The clock on the wall began to tick again, but this time, it was impossibly fast. The hands a blurry whirlwind. The entire room started to shake violently. Books flew off my shelves. My lamp crashed to the floor. The dark spot on the ceiling expanded rapidly, engulfing the clock and spreading down the wall like a tide of black ink. It wasn't a spot, it was a hole, a tear in the fabric of my room. The blackness consumed everything it touched, not destroying it, but simply making it disappear. It swallowed my desk, my bed, the floor beneath my feet. I was standing on a shrinking island of carpet, the void closing in on all sides. I knew with a certainty that chilled me to my core, that if it touched me, I would be gone too. Erased. I closed my eyes, bracing for the end. The humming reached a deafening crescendo, and then, silence. I opened my eyes. I was standing in my room. Everything was back to normal. The sun was streaming through the window, my laptop was on, and my phone was buzzing with notifications. I looked at the wall where the antique clock used to be. It was empty. The nail it hung on was gone. There wasn't even a hole. It was just a smooth, painted wall, as if the clock had never existed at all. I ran out of my room. My parents were in the kitchen making breakfast. They looked at me, confused by my frantic state. I asked them about the clock, my grandmother's clock. They looked at me with blank expressions. What clock? My mum asked. Honey, your grandmother never gave you a clock. They had no memory of it. No memory of me taking it to the police. No memory of anything. I checked my phone's camera roll. The video I took of the clock moving backward was gone. It was as if the past 4 days had been completely wiped from existence. For everyone but me. I'm the only one who remembers. Sometimes, late at night, I think I can still hear a faint ticking sound. And when I look at a clock, any clock, for a split second, I see the hands stutter, as if they're fighting the urge to tick backward. I don't know what that thing in my room was. A gateway. A glitch in reality. All I know is that it took my clock. It took 4 days of my life. Because how do you tell someone that time itself is broken, and you're the only one who knows? Thanks for listening. If you've ever experienced something you can't explain, let me know in the comments. And make sure to subscribe for more strange stories.